Hello everyone. Today's topic is keys, and this is part of key management module 4. Okay, so let's look at what are the different steps or key events that are there in key management. Okay, the first thing is generating keys. Now we saw a lot of cipher and encryption algorithms. And in those algorithms, we have seen that the keys are generated for each algorithm in a certain method. Okay. Now, where does the security lie when creating or designing a key generating algorithm? What are the things to be remembered? Okay. Those are the kind of things which we are going to discuss in today's lesson. Okay. So the first step is generating keys. Okay. While generating keys, the first thing to be remembered is that a reduced key space, that is, if the size of the key, the number of bits of the key is less, then it will be insecure, cryptographically insecure. Okay, so since the security of an algorithm, encryption or decryption algorithm, depends on the secure, generation, transmission, and storage of a key, it is important that the key that is being generated is cryptographically strong. Okay, so if the process that we use to generate the key is cryptographically weak, then the whole encryption, decryption, whole process is going to be weak. And one such example is the DES 56-bit key. It was deemed insecure, and now we use triple DES. Okay, and since the computing power, okay, to break or to do cryptanalysis, the biggest hindrance is that the present computers do not have that kind of capability. Okay, but the computing power doubles every 18 months. So if we are expecting that our key generation algorithm that we are designing is going to be okay for the next 10 years or 20 years, then accordingly we have to plan. So the size of the key should not be enough for today's systems. It should be enough for the next 10 or 20 years systems. Okay, now this is just an example. The number of possible key of various key spaces. Okay, so if we are looking at 4-byte keys, 5-byte keys, 6-byte keys, 7-byte keys, and 8-byte keys. Okay, now if my key is only lowercase letters, then in a 4-byte key, the different possibilities are 4,60,000 keys. In 5-byte, it is 1.2 into 10 raised to 7. In 6 bytes, it's 3.1 into 10 raised to 8. In 7 bytes, it's 8 into 10 raised to 9. And in 8 bytes, it's 2.1 into 10 raised to 11. Okay, so you can easily see over here that as the key space increases, the number of tests that should be done for a brute force is increasing exponentially. Okay, now this is if the key combination is only with lowercase letters. Supposing the key combination is lowercase letters and digits, then look how much the difference is. Here it is 4,60,000, here it is 17 lakhs. Okay, and accordingly, every one of this, as the key space increases, the number of attempts for brute force is also increasing very much larger as the key space size increases. So if alphanumeric characters are if alphanumeric characters are used, then for 4 bytes, it's 1.5 into 10 raised to 7. And just like earlier, as the key space increases, the number of attempts is exponentially increasing. If all printable characters are taken into account, then it is even better than the alphanumeric characters. ASCII characters are taken, then it is a 128 characters are there. So accordingly, this has increased. If 8-bit ASCII characters are used, then 256 possibilities are there. And this is how the values are shown. Okay, so from this itself, we see that the time taken for a brute force attack increases exponentially when the size of the key space increases and the number of combinations of the different characters used in the key also increases as the number of characters in the different combinations of the key increases. Okay. Now, for an exhaustive search is brute force. Oh, okay. And if we assume that it is one system can do 1 million attempts per second. So the assumption is that a system can do 1 million attempts per second. Then in that case, look at this over here. If we are using 26 lowercase letters, then for 4-byte key space, half a second is only required to break the key. Okay. For 5 bytes, 12 seconds, 6 bytes, 5 minutes, 7 bytes, 2.2 hours, and 8 bytes, 2.4 days. Okay. But still, this is feasible. Okay. This keeps increasing as we see as the number of characters that are used to form the key increases. And then finally, if you see over here, in the case of 8-bit ASCII, for 4 byte, it just takes 1.2 hours. But for 5 bytes, it takes longer. For 6 bytes, it takes years. For 7 bytes, it takes 2,300 years. And for 8 bytes, it takes 5,80,000 years, even when the system is able to perform 1 million attempts per second. So from this also, we see that as the key space increases, the security also increases exponentially. Okay. Next is a poor key choice. Okay. So if normally passwords or keys, which is selected by the user itself, is selected so that they can remember the password and use it whenever it is required. They don't think about security, because remembering passwords with random numbers and alphabets are difficult. Okay. So they tend to make poor choices. And in that case, a user who is able to collect some kind of information over the net. Okay, so social engineering, he can do social engineering, and he can find some information, and they can use combinations of known information about that particular user to guess the keys, possible keys, and use that instead of using all combinations to check. That is using a brute force attack. This is a slightly smarter brute force attack called dictionary attack. Okay, and combinations of well-known information about that particular user is taken to make a dictionary of the different possible keys, and that is used to try to break the. Okay, so some of the possibilities are, it is publicly known, the user's name, initials, account name, some personal information, things like that. So for example, if the account name is K Loan, okay, and the user's name is Daniel V. Clean, and some of the passwords that would be tried are KLoan, KLoan 0, KLoan 1, KLoan 123, DVK, over here, DVK, DVK, etc. Many combinations can be used. Now, if they know our password, maiden name, school name, best friend's name, things like that, all those combinations can be tried. Okay. Then another possibility is they can try words from various databases and their variations, like names of their parents, friends, brothers, sisters, things like that. Okay, places, famous people, cartoon characters. Okay, so if this person is interested in a particular area, then, that can be used. Mythical creatures, sports, movie names, things like that can also be used, and its variations can also be used for the dictionary attack. Okay, then variations of words that have not been used in the second step, with uppercase, lowercase, special characters, symbols, etc. added, can also be used in the dictionary attack. Okay, then foreign language words. If I know a particular language, that I might use foreign language words. Word pairs can be used like that. Many combinations are there. Different combinations of different possibilities are put into the dictionary, and a brute force attack is done with these specific words, which is called a dictionary attack. Okay, so a poor key choice is another problem. We should keep all this in mind when selecting a key. Okay, next, random keys. Ideally, a key that would be secure should be randomly chosen. Okay, and for us to choose randomly, it might be difficult. So normally we can use some automated process to do this. So if the key is 64-bit longs, 64 bits long, every possible 64-bit key must be equally likely. Okay, so whatever process we use should not have any bias. Okay, the key bit can be generated through a random source or cryptographically secure pseudo random bit generator. Okay, any method can be used. Now, some encryption algorithms have weak keys. Okay, so for example, in the case of DES, 2 raised to 56 options. Sorry, this is not 256, it's 2 raised to 56. Sorry, just 1 second. Okay, so 2 raised to 56 options are there. Out of this 2 raised to 56 options, 16 weak keys are there. So we can just leave out those weak keys, then deciding on which key should be used for the encryption decryption process. Okay, now generating keys for public key cryptography system for public key, this is, you know, symmetric key. DES, public key cryptographic systems, it's harder because the one key is already publicly known. Anybody can, you know, find it. So if the private key is in any way compromised, then the system will be compromised. Okay, and we don't have much choice in selecting the key over here because there are certain mathematical properties which needs to be satisfied. For example, the initial number should be a prime, which should be a quadratic residue, things like that. We saw all the algorithms. So we know that the key generation is not something we select at random, but it is done with a mathematical process. Okay, next, instead of using a single word, we can decide to use a phrase, a sentence, and try to generate the key from that sentence. Okay, so a better solution to all these problems is to use an entire phrase instead of a word and convert the phrase to the key. Okay, so these phrases are called passphrases. A technique called key crunching. Key crunching converts the easy to remember passphrases to random keys. And once again, a one-way hash function is used to convert the phrase to a pseudo-random bit string. Okay. Now, there is a standard X 9.17 key generation standard. It's an ANSI standard. It specifies a method of key generation. Okay. This does not generate easy to remember keys. It is more suitable. We don't have to learn. I'm just giving you an example of a key generating standard. Okay, so it is more suitable for generating session keys or pseudo-random numbers within a system. The cryptographic algorithm used is triple DES, but other algorithms can also be used. Okay, so this standard is designed so that we have cryptographically secure keys. Okay, next is transferring keys. Another, problem is that once the key has been generated properly, good keys have been generated, they should be transmitted to the sender and the receiver securely. Okay, so normally in the X 9.17 standard, 2 types of keys are specified. A key encryption key, that is a key that is used to encrypt the key, and the actual key, which are the data keys. Okay, so the key encryption keys encrypt other keys for distribution, and data keys encrypt the actual traffic or data. Okay, in normal cases, key encrypting keys are distributed manually. Okay, it might be part of a token or it may not be a part of a token. So it can be stored in a tamper-proof device like smart card or something like that, but only sometimes. Otherwise, the actual key is being transferred, but manually, face-to-face, it will be needed to be collected. But the data key is then distributed digitally using digitally, because it is generated and securely transmitted. Okay, this two-tiered key concept is used a lot in key distribution. So if the key encrypting keys are used to manually, distribute the key encrypting key, then that key can be used to securely transmit the data keys. Okay. Another solution is that instead of sending, instead of sending the whole key as a single part, the key is split into several. This is also called, key sharing. Okay, so we're going to look at that later. So we will discuss it a little later. Okay, so the key is split into different parts, and each part is sent over a different media. So just because one part of the key is compromised, the whole key will not be compromised. Okay, now key distribution in large networks, there are, we've seen this earlier also, in every pair of users, keys need to be generated. So if there are n users in the network, n into n minus 1 divided by 2 keys are required. So this is a very large process. And in these cases, mostly there is a key distribution center, okay, KDC or server, which makes the operation more efficient. And we've seen all this earlier, how key distribution center works and things like that. Okay. And alternatively, instead of using a key distribution center, a symmetric cryptography or public key cryptography protocol can be used to transfer or distribute the key securely. Okay. The next thing is verifying keys. No matter what secure method we generate the key by, transfer the key by, it is still possible that an attacker can have compromised the process, and the key that we are receiving or we have received may not be from the actual party. Okay, so how does, if A and B, Alice is sending a key to B, how does Bob, check, verify that the key that he has received has actually come from Alice? Okay, some of the cryptographically secure methods are, one, of course, manually, face-to-face. Second, trusted courier. But here the problem is that we have to trust that the courier is a trustworthy entity. Okay, then if the key is encrypted with the key encryption key we saw earlier, then the Bob has to trust the fact that only Alice has that particular key, that the key encryption key is not compromised. Next, if Alice uses a digital signature protocol to sign the key, to ensure that she's the one who has sent the key, then Bob has to trust that the public key database, when he has to trust the public key database when he verifies the signature, because he can only verify the signature using the public key of Alice. Okay, so if the database of the public key database has been compromised, then that public key might be the attacker's public key. It's possible. Another possibility is if a key distribution center, KDC, signs Alice's public key, then Bob has to trust that the key distribution center is secure and not tampered with. So for any process of verification, there are side effects, but the assumption is that these steps will cause the verification to be easier. Okay. Another possibility for verification is, one is to ensure that the key has actually come from the claimed party. Okay. Next is, on transmission, if there is any error, then it has to be detected. For that, error detection schemes and correction bits are normally used. We've seen these things, you all know, because you all have learned it earlier in some other, theory paper. So if there is an error, then the error detection scheme or correction bits will show that the key is not correct and the key has to be reset. Okay. Another widely used method is to encrypt a constant value with the key and to send the first 2 to 4 bytes of the, ciphertext along with the key. At the receiving end, again, that key will be encrypted using the same constant value. And this 2 to 4 bytes is once again rechecked to check whether there has been any error in transmission. Okay, so that's another possibility. And the chance of an undetected error ranges from 1 in 2 raised to 16 to 1 in 2 raised to 32. So the chances that the error does not get detected is very less. Okay. Now, key error detection during decryption. Okay, so we want to ensure that the decrypting key is correct. The naive approach is to attach a verification block, attach a known header to the plain text before encryption. At the receiving end, Bob decrypts the header and verifies that it is correct. Okay, how does this work? It gives the attacker, this particular method works, but the problem is that now attackers know plain text and the actual ciphertext, because they are attaching it and sending it, part of the ciphertext anyway. So if they are attaching it and sending it, so it will help with cryptanalysis of this particular system. Okay, it also makes attacks against short key ciphers like DES and all exportable ciphers easy. So if the key is less, or if the cipher is can be manipulated, then this particular process of adding the verification block will cause problems. Okay, because all combinations of the key can be, checksum can be pre-calculated, and then when the verification block is received, they just need to compare with the checksum to determine which keys cipher that particular verification block is. Okay, so a better way of decryption key being checked is, first, generate an initial value, and it should not be the same one used for the message. Use this initial value to generate a large block of bits, say 512 bits by some process. Hash this result and use the same fixed bit of hash, say 32, for the key checksum. So each time if this value is different, then we will be able to, people will not be able to, cause attack on this. Okay. Now, this gives an attacker Eve very little information about the actual key. Okay. And here, known plain text attack is not really possible, and chosen plain text attack is also not possible, because before she sees any of these things, the hash function is used before they see the actual values. Okay, since the verification block itself is hashed, these attacks are not possible. Okay, the next thing is updating a key. Okay, so normally keys are for a duration of time, and after that time, either the key has to be updated or a new set of keys has to be agreed upon. Okay, so best way to handle security is, if it is possible, to change the keys on a daily basis, but that is very difficult because all these keys also have to be distributed. So easiest solution is to agree upon a function so that the old key can be used to generate the new key on a daily basis, and this is called updating the key. Okay, so Alice and Bob will agree upon a one-way function which each day is going to be implemented on the previous day's key to get the current day's new key. Okay, but remember, if the old key has been compromised, then the new key generated like this will also be compromised. Okay, so that's an issue. Next is storing the keys. Okay, as we told earlier, the easiest method is, once the key has been transmitted to the user, it is the user's headache to keep the key safe. Okay, so instead of writing it down or storing it on in a particular place, the user is supposed to remember the key and use it. It's in his brain, and he has to remember the key and use it whenever it is needed. And there are systems like IPS 881. It is a reference in your textbook, so please, you can go check it. IPS uses this particular method. Another method is the key can be stored in a magnetic stripe, plastic key, in a token, okay, in a physical token, so that the key is in that particular token, and a special reader or an encryption box or a computer terminal can be used to read the key from that particular token. Okay, but normally to keep this secure, the physical token will have part of the key, and another key is also supposed to be given, which is known to the user, to make the actual terminal or whatever the facility work. Okay, so you know, in your bank cards and things like that, in your credit card, all those things, you insert the key, but inserting the key is not enough to transfer the money. You have to insert your code also. That's what I mean. Okay. The next thing is hard to remember keys. Okay, we have to, if we cannot remember the key, it's hard to remember, then we have to store it in some form. In that case, it is better to store the key in encrypted form and use something similar to a key encryption key. Okay. Ideally, if we are storing the keys, it should never appear at any point in time unencrypted to anybody. Okay. So that is storing keys. Next is backup keys. Now, normally, there will be one key which is given to a particular authorized user, and that user is the one who will be able to unlock that particular account or that particular service and use it. Okay, say that in a company, there is a security officer and the security officer has got the key. She has gone on vacation or she met with an accident or something like that, and she is not available and the key is known only to her. So during the time that she is not available in the company, how do people access the particular service or facility that she was given the key to? Somebody else should have access to it. Okay. So two possibilities are there. I told you earlier, a secret sharing protocol and a key escrow. Key escrow is simply all keys are encrypted. The key is not given to a particular person and they are the only ones who can use it. Instead, all the keys are encrypted and securely stored in a common place, provided the person with access to the common place can be trusted. Okay, so even if a person is not there, then the key escrow is there in a common place, and if the person is, if that person is trusted, keys can be got even if one particular person is not available on the scene. Okay, the next possibility is a key sharing protocol. Here, by key sharing, earlier we told you that the key can be split into number of parts, and each part can be sent separately. I told you that for distribution. Okay, it can be sent separately so that one part, if it is compromised, the whole key is not compromised. This is something similar. The backup key is in such a way that the key itself is divided into a number of n number of parts. Okay, and for a particular service to be used, only k parts are required. So each of these n parts are with different n people. Okay, but all n pieces are not required to use the particular security. Okay, to decrypt or encrypt a particular thing, you don't need all the parts of the key. You just need at least k parts. So this solves the earlier problem. If something happens to one particular person, the other people who are available can get together to use the facility or use that particular service. Okay, but none of those pieces alone can reconstruct the key or be used to guess or know the actual key. Okay, so this is backup keys. The last topic is compromised keys. What is compromised keys? In some way, the key is no longer a secret. It has, the system has been breached and it is compromised. The only option left for a compromised key is to not use that particular key. Okay, so if the user knows that the key has been compromised, then it is easy to solve that problem. But if the user does not know that the key has been compromised, then it is possible that the duration for which the compromised key has not come to the attention of the user, the information, the transmission, whatever is being transmitted over that particular, media with that particular key will be compromised. Okay, so if the compromised key is for a symmetric crypto system, then the user has to change the key and assume that they came to know about the compromise early and minimize the damage. Okay. Now, if it is a private key, then the problem is even bigger. Because I told you earlier, the public key is already publicly known. Any attacker can impersonate this user if he knows the private key. Since public key is publicly known, if an attacker knows your private key, then he can send messages to all of your contacts, and they will not know that this has not come from you. So if a private key has been compromised, there must be a method by which that information is propagated throughout the network quickly. And this is normally managed by a key distribution center. Or if the user is managing it themselves, it should be published to the users in their particular network in quickly. Okay. Now, it would be better for a user to have different keys for different, just like passwords. Okay. So if one key is compromised, every other part of the application or system, everything else that he's using on the computer will also not be compromised. So it is better to have different keys for different applications. And one other possibility which is being explored in recent years is the involvement of biometric. Biometric is not so. Biometric means parts of our own body is being used. Maybe our sound or our iris can be scanned, fingerprints can be scanned, things like that can be done. Face recognition, things like that can be done so that it is not so easy to compromise the biometric of a person. There are methods to compromise the biometric of a person, but it's not as easy as compromising a. Okay, and with this, we conclude today's session. As usual, please feel free to contact me if you have any doubts, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much.